You're now listening to From the Jump.
Welcome to From the Jump, your source for all things hip-hop. I'm Syllable. This is my co-host,
Mr. White.
And we're here to talk about the Weeknd's new album, just dropped, Jon FM. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below saying, I subscribed, and we'll try our best to reply to your comment. And we're going to see if you agree with our opinions about these tracks. Now, this album, I'm going to say right off the bat, is a depressing album disguised with happy synths. Now, if you haven't had a chance to, check out our other album reviews and reactions. Now, your initial impressions for the track list, we're going to have that up on the screen as well. You can see from our rundown graphic. But what do you think about this album just off the bat, Mr. White?
Well, it's definitely still in the vein of what his last project was, After Hours, and it's kind of cool that he's following that up with Dawn FM. So you're out having that late night till 5 a.m. and then you're seeing the sun come up. And then he does a really good job. He has Jim Carrey on here narrating, doing some really cool 1980s radio drops. It fits right into that space of pop, rock, and soul and funk music from the era of the 80s, and he just goes right into it, and it's a very dystopian future type of sound.
Yeah, and so the first track, which is the title track, is Dawn FM, and it's like you're in this imaginary tunnel and you're trying to figure out what's going on. We've got Jim Carrey narrating as the radio announcer, which is pretty funny. You know, Jim Carrey, he's been going at it for a while. He's had his own depression issues going on. I think The Weeknd has also been struggling with his depression, and you can see that in some of the lyrics and the content of this track as well. The second track pops up. Oh yeah, I'm going to say about the first track, Dawn FM. It ends up by saying, you know, Jim Carrey's talking about, we'll be there to hold your hand and guide you through this painless transition. And so it's like, you know, Jim Carrey is known for being the man with the rubber face, right? He's very comical. He's taken on some serious roles. We've seen like The Truman Show and other films that he's been in. But at the same time, he's a comedian at heart. So I think there is definitely some irony here in his narration.
Yeah, he's taking a break from his typical serious nature that he's taken on. He's had a very like infographic type of flavor that he's been approaching the game with as of late. And I feel like he's kind of making fun of that. Like he's serious, but not being serious on this album. And I like that. I like that kind of fun space he's putting himself in.
Now, the second track, Gasoline, it's got this weird accent. I think The Weeknd is doing an impersonation of a British accent or an Australian one. It threw me off.
It sounds like The Police or like Depeche Mode or something like that. It's definitely very 80s. Once again, he's linked all the way into this sound, and he's updating it and bringing it into 2022.
And then we're bringing it up for the third track on this album is going to be How Do I Make You Love Me? Now, that the title of that by itself just sounds clingy, but I will say the intro's got this nice 80s synth. I love 80s synthesizers. You know, I grew up with synthesizers in my house when I was younger, whether it was like Korg, Roland, some of these classic synthesizers that you're going to hear on like Kraftwerk albums or, you know, classic 80s pop electronica type stuff when they're popping off. So The Weeknd's bringing in this sound real heavy with How Do I Make You Love Me?
Well, I would like to say it's very interesting that he comes in with this track where he's trying to figure out how to do things the right way. I think this whole project is a very built-in self-reflection of who he is today and who he believes he's going to be in the future. That's kind of what he's projecting in terms of the whole old man face on the cover. It's like he's thinking about what he's done, and maybe he hasn't done things the right way, but it's like he's trying really hard to figure out how to do things the right way. He's just not good at that.
So if we're going to talk about the cover already, then I definitely want to point out the fact that cover, that's an awful picture of The Weeknd. And it's kind of, obviously it's graphically designed, but the thing is, it reminds me of a picture of Dorian Gray. So I'll do a quick screen flash so you can see what that looks like on a video. So you see here in a picture of Dorian Gray, it's representing the fact that the picture is reflecting what his soul looks like, not his body. Right. So he's tapping into that a little deeper. Now, as far as How Do I Make You Love Me, right? There was some really nice backing. I really liked the backing vocals that were layered on, pretty dope. And There's also a really great dropout when The Weeknd says, "I can see the real you, girl. You don't have to hide." So there's a nice dropout in the heavy synth, and it really accentuated that line. What's the next track up? We got Mr. White.
We have Take My Breath. And this is definitely one of his nicer tracks on here. A lot of this stuff is definitely pretty somber. Even though the music is bright and bubbly and bouncy around what he's trying to do, The Weeknd to me sounds like the voice of Vaporwave, essentially, where it's just everything's down tuned. It seems like the 80s, but it's like the 80s on an alternate timeline where there wasn't a lot of fun and whatnot. So he's coming into this Take My Breath song, and it's kind of like basically saying that he's very happy about, what's going on in his relationship, and he feels like there's a lot of positive outcomes potentially there. And I think that's kind of like the contrast to some of the other songs starting the project off.
Yeah, and I like the real rhythm that he's got going on with Take My Breath Away, right? And then he says, "I make it last forever, babe. Do it now and never, babe." Like the rhythm in that really catches me. I like that. It's dope. It's a lot catchier. And now if you look at the playlist on The Weeknd's YouTube channel, not all the videos, in fact, most of them don't have music videos. This one actually does have a music video, and it also ends with him comically laying on the floor, gasping, trying to catch his breath. One of the things I want to talk about from an audio engineering standpoint is the echoes here on this track sound really like roomy and big and spaced out, which is a lot different than if you're just layering. If you just put like echo effect on a track, that's one dimensional. He's got that signature sound of using buses on a mixer, where now you have this kind of three-dimensional audio space going on with the echoes, and
Definitely.
I really like that. So next up, after we got what was that? Take My Breath. So after Take My Breath, the next track we got, which is going to be the fifth track, is going to be Sacrifice. Now I believe you got some thoughts on Sacrifice.
Well, Sacrifice is interesting because he takes that Alicia Myers sample, "I Want to Thank You," which is technically a song that's about a very positive thing, right? And it's a very popular song at the black cookouts. You could hear it in the old school homes, right? But in this Sacrifice song, he's actually talking about how he doesn't want to sacrifice his time for this lady. So like you take the contrast of the previous song, which is Take My Breath, was like, oh, I'm so in love. But then he's realizing on this next track, he's like, wait, I don't want to commit. It's like he's definitely doing that in and out throughout the whole project, where he's like, I really love you, but I love my time more. And that's what he's saying throughout the song. And I think it's interesting. Once again, he's taking these very light, bubbly, airy 70s, 80s vibes, and he's twisting it, and squeezing it and being like, no, I have a different perspective on this. And it's cool that he understands music so deeply that he's able to take it and still remix it and make it fresh and vibrant. But it's still the same dreary topics that Weeknd likes to cover.
And you gotta ask yourself, is this social manipulation? What's going on? Like, it's got this poppy, bubbly synths and all that, but then the topic is like very toxic, very emotionally harmful. So the lyrics of this song that I liked is, the life is still worth living. Don't be out here catching feelings. There's always sacrifice. And so, it's you could go deep on that. Those lyrics can go a long way because, right, to get what you want, sometimes you got to sacrifice something.
Yes.
You got to sacrifice some play to put the work in. So there's, sacrifice is a topic we can go on all day about, but that was definitely with the samples that he put in there and the lyrics. He's going through some shit, working through his own depression, and this music is part of his cathartic release for this kind of dark, twisted fantasy outlook. What's the next track that we got, Mr. White?
So the next track is just more of an interlude. We have A Tale by Quincy Jones. He's talking about kind of a traumatic upbringing that he had in his childhood. His mother was taken away very young in a straitjacket due to dementia. And then growing up with just his father, didn't have that feminine perspective in his life. And that started touching on maybe what the dream or what the Weeknd is feeling in his mind, where he's not able to have healthy relationships because he never had that matriarch to show him the value of having good relationships with women. So it's like he's giving another story or tale of another man who's in a similar state in his life or has gone through the same type of trauma and trouble. So it's interesting that he goes there. And then we switch over to Out of Time, right? And Out of Time is very much like Sacrifice, right? Because he's saying, hey, I don't have time for this. Like, we had fun. We did our thing. I really loved it. Like, I kind of got what I wanted out of this. I don't know if you got what you wanted, but I'm out of time. So, of course, once again, we're continuing along this path of toxicity with The Weeknd just saying, like, this is who I am. If you can't accept that, then that's your fault.
It's got really 80s Japanese city pop vibes to that. And Jim Carrey comes on at the end talking about, don't you touch that dial. You may even forget your own name. And it's just
it's good.
So
the narration is perfect.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know this, which is not known very well, it's not widely known, but actually Jim Carrey was neighbors with The Weeknd, or currently still is in LA, and they used to wave to each other through telescopes. They would look at each other and stuff like that. So they already had kind of this friendship that was going on. And so it's very similar, interesting for a comedic character like Jim Carrey to come on here to Wale's album About Nothing with Jerry Seinfeld dropping those samples on there. So we see this nice mixture of blending these genres, of this nice kind of pioneering this sound that isn't necessarily R&B, going right along with it though. It's blended real nice. And then so after that, we actually have rap features by Tyler the Creator on Here We Go Again. And Tyler the Creator, he talks about the benefits of prenuptial agreements.
And The Weeknd also has some very topical stuff. A girl trying to pose for a photo with him and trying to make her boyfriend jealous, but essentially ends up in a relationship with The Weeknd accidentally, but then she's like, damn, I probably didn't want that to happen per se. But he's also saying that, like, this is what happens, right? You try to show off or you try to show up your guy, and now you're doing something and you're a side piece. And this is also, once again, him showing his toxicity. He's showing why he doesn't have success with relationships. He's definitely okay with messing up other people's relationships. He doesn't have an issue intersecting with that. Look,
no.
You know, he's just doing his thing. And then this is kind of what we've come to know about The Weeknd, especially on this project at this point.
Yeah, and there's actually background vocals on this track by Bruce Johnson, one of the original Beach Boys, right, from way back in the day. So it's interesting to see how they're still coming up and they're still managing to get on tracks. People haven't forgotten the Beach Boys completely. And so some of the lyrics that I like on Weeknd is singing here. He says, my new girl, she a movie star. I love her right, make her scream like Neve Campbell, right? But when I make her laugh, swear it cures my depressing thoughts. And so obviously we've talked about this before. He's going through depression. He's trying to figure this stuff out. He's talking about using romance as an escape while still being fucked up by the toxicity of his romantic relationship at the same time. For those that don't know who Neve Campbell is, she's actually the actress that was all Scream movies, right? So he's doing a kind of double entendre there, making a play on words about how he's making his lady scream like the Scream actress, right? So Tyler, the Creator, comes up and he's rapping. He says, we don't need no damn religion telling us that we in love. But if we did crush down the road, spending lawyers' fees up, pen and pad going to save my ass if these feelings freeze up. You're going to sign this prenup. You're going to sign this prenup. Obviously, the man's trying to be prepared.
Yeah.
What's the next track we got?
We have Best Friends. And once again, he's taking that turn, right? You know, we just had a few tracks that he was being very toxic. Now he's trying to maybe figure this out and have a better understanding of how to build something that's a little bit more solid. But I think he's still kind of poking fun at it. You know, I don't think he really takes it seriously. I think he wants to have a healthy relationship, but that's like with a lot of people that have addictions. They want to stop doing the bad thing that's destroying their lives, but can they really stop? And I think that's kind of what it is here that he's going back and forth with. Like, he understands what he needs to do, but is he actually going to do it? And that's what this Best Friends track is. It wasn't necessarily a track that struck me a lot.
No,
it was
I could never hurt you. We could take it further. Like, I like that rhyme play right there with that kind of stuff. But the next track coming up is there someone else? Now, obviously, this album reads like a journal entry and The Weeknd trying to sort out his inner monologue about, like, what the fuck is my life turning into, right? And I really like the vocal sample and the intro. I don't know who it is. I tried to look it up on the credits for Wikipedia. I couldn't find any information on what the sample is that he used in the beginning. But it started out really, really dope with a lot of cool 80 funk keys going on. And so that was pretty cool. The next track after that is we got Starry Eyes. Now I'm going to be straight up about this. Starry Eyes is probably my least favorite track. It's the whine track. It sounds more whiny than Merlot. Like it's straight whine.
But I think it's a great follow up to Is There Someone Else? Because he's showing how intensely he is in love. A lot of times when people get in serious relationships, they get jealous, they get envious, they're questioning it, right? Like something is too good to be true. The saying is like that because when things are going right, especially people who aren't confident in their relationships and aren't secure, The Weeknd is definitely showing a lot of his insecurities. In this case, the Starry Eyes is basically him just being caught up in the love, maybe not really seeing, the grass from the trees, the field from the trees type of situation. And he doesn't really care. Like he's just enamored by this woman and this love that he's feeling, and he's just great.
Well, I mean, we've all been there. When you're infatuated with a girl, you don't see her faults. You don't see the fact that she's got 10 other men on speed dial in her phone, right? You can't see the forest for the trees. And so he's obviously relating to this in his Starry-Eyed track. But sonically, I couldn't stand it. It was very hard to listen to. Do you disagree with me? Is this your favorite track? If this is your favorite track, please argue with me on YouTube and let me know why this is such a great track. Because for me, the sonic part of
it wasn't much there.
No. And so then we got Every Angel is Terrifying. Now, that's the 12th track on this, as you can see from our rundown graphic. And for me, this was the Stranger Things track, right? So if you've seen that series, Stranger Things on Netflix, right, it's got that kind of sinister 80s, the sound of that synth. This sounds very similar to that sonically. It definitely feels like an echo of Stranger Things.
And the reason why Stranger Things is definitely terrifying because you have something evil chasing little children. And so you have angels essentially, but then you have this terrifying backdrop. And I think that's what Weeknd is dealing with. He's trying to figure out himself, but he's also trying to figure out a woman, right? And it's complicated. They're not always going to be nice. They're not always going to be in a good mood. It's not always going to be, sugar plum fairies and gumdrops and shit like that. And I think that he's kind of saying that that's what he sees his relationships as. Yeah. And he sees a woman as somebody that eventually could mess him up.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. They actually got the director of the movie Uncut Gems, which is Josh Sefty, who makes a cameo as his character called Arthur Fleminger, right? And Arthur Fleminger, what kind of name is that? I don't know where he came up with that, but it's very funny. He's got this kind of announcer voice, just a breakout, right? In the middle of the track, it's like a bridge, right? He comes out, he says, intense, graphic, sexy, euphoric, provocative, edgy, thought-provoking, technically and visually stunning, a compelling work of science fiction. And he continues on this monologue. It's done very well. The way the dropout happens. It's very
seamless.
Yeah, the bridge comes in. But he starts talking about Afterlife can be yours for only $4.95 for the subscription. When you order the Best of Your Current Life collection series, you will enter a world beyond your imagination, a future out of control, and an experience you will never forget. That's very fascinating.
You know what it reminded me of? Very much like a gag radio station from GTA, where they do those ridiculous commercials on there that don't make any sense. But it was perfect in the same way GTA mixes that into the soundtracks. It's the same way that The Weeknd did it here, where it's like it's completely silly and ridiculous, but it was put there to kind of add that silly effect to what he's doing and kind of ease up a lot of the tension, because this album is very intense throughout.
Yeah. I mean, this album was probably sponsored by Prozac. Your choice for not feeling depressed as shit. Exactly. You got to look at the background. Follow the money. Follow the money.
Yeah.
So, Don't Break My Heart coming up next for the 13th track. I don't have any special notes on that. Just sounds a little more 80s, like even more 80s than the 80s shit already. Followed up with 14th track, I Heard You're Married, where Lil Wayne comes on. And I, personally, I like Lil Wayne. I'm not his number one fan, but I haven't heard Lil Wayne sound like this. And now you said you've heard Lil Wayne sound like this.
I feel like once Lil Wayne started experimenting more, like he did Lollipop, he did that rock album where he was doing the prom queen thing. He's definitely dabbled in pop and R&B. He will put auto-tune on his voice and sing. He's not afraid to do that. I'm not necessarily saying I'm the biggest fan of this style of Lil Wayne, but I thought that the topic was great. They were both basically hollering at a chick who was married, but they're like, hey, look, I don't want to be your side piece. I want you to marry me. I want to be that guy, but I don't want to be the other guy. And that's important that he's highlighting that The Weeknd isn't necessarily trying to be a homewrecker. He might have wrecked some homes, but he's not going for that. He wants a woman that could be all his. And I think a lot of these songs are talking about that tension of being in a loving relationship, but then something going wrong. And this is definitely a thing that can go wrong. If you're with somebody who's already in a relationship, whether they're married or whether they're in just being with someone else, that's messed up, right? Like somebody should disclose that information and you should decide whether to move forward or not. But a lot of times this stuff is happening in secret.
And in a related topic, is Drake Nicki Minaj's side bitch? More on that later. So Lil Wayne has these nice lyrics, and he's doing a nod to Prince, definitely with some of these lyrics. Can't be your side bitch. That shit ain't fly, bitch. Can't be your pilot. Can't be your private. Where the love at? You walk down the aisle, I can make you run back. Like, fuck that. Where the love at? And tell hubby I'll kill him, no hubcap. And so I was like, all right. Lil Wayne coming in with a more of a laid-back R&B sound than he normally does, but at least there was some rapping on this. It wasn't straight R&B. And then what's the last track that we got?
Well, this is the last track, but this is the last track that The Weeknd is singing on. This one's Less Than Zero.
That's true.
So I think it definitely flows well as far as the project is concerned. And now he's at this part where it's like, don't break my heart. I heard you married. And now he feels like Less Than Zero because he's like, man, this is some bullshit. Like I was really into you. I thought things were going in a good place. And then I found out the worst possible thing about you. And of course, he's like, this is exactly why I don't get into relationships, why I don't take women seriously, why I don't sometimes even take myself seriously, because I know I'm not going to actually put the effort in. And so it's like a perfect exit track for the project. And it just wraps up everything about it. This that somber tone of The Weeknd's voice over these very synth pop 80s vocal or music drops. And it's great. You know, he's doing a great job of making this a whole project.
Definitely. And so some of the lyrics that really stood out to me, and I'll tell you why in a second, is because you were just like me before. Now you'd rather leave me than watch me die in your arms. God, it's intense. No, I can't shake this feeling that crawls in my bed. Again, got that Stranger Things vibe. That like The Weeknd, are you in the upside down place? Like, come back. You know. I don't know if Prozac's the answer, but figure out something, right? I mean, I love the music, and it's true, pain can create some incredible music reflecting on trauma, but is this a shout for help? Get your friends to help you out. Maybe you and Jim Carrey can go to therapy together. I don't know. We got to figure this out. So then the actual last track on this is actually kind of like an ad-libs outro by Jim Carrey called Phantom Regret. And one of the things that I love about this, I'm a big Jim Carrey fan. I think one of my first 2 VHS cassettes, to date myself, was The Terminator and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, Part 1 with Jim Carrey on it. But man, it's depressing as fuck. I'm not even gonna lie.
This last track is like listening to a eulogy or something.
A suicide note.
It's
crazy.
It's not positive, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
And Jim delivers it with great finesse. His voice is perfect for it. Just like he was with the radio drops, he's reading this very poetic, basically a list of regrets and making sure that you've gotten all of your baggage cleared before you go to the afterlife.
Before you cross the Styx River, on that boat, on that ferry boat with the sits in the hood, right? So he talks about now that all future plans have been postponed. This almost seems like a nod to 2020 and then the recovery year, 2021, this past year. It's time to look back on the things you thought you owned. God, do you remember them well? Were you high or just stoned? You got to unwind your mind, train your soul to align, and dance till you find that divine boogaloo. Now, Jim Carrey probably shouldn't be going around saying boogaloo, only because this is ghostwritten by The Weeknd here would he be okay existing in this space talking about that? But I probably wouldn't advise Carrey to say that in other contexts.
It's some other stuff going on with that, unfortunately.
But, he talks about, so some of the lines that stick out to us on here are like, I'm dozing off to REM, I'm trying not to lose my faith. And he talks about, and the girl I used to love, we broke up in the club, almost out in the discotheque, right? Yeah. You see this narrative. Every time you try to fix me, I know you'll never find that missing piece. Like, wow. So we hope that he heals from his love break. We hope that the Weeknd heals from his broken heart. Don't fake happiness if you're not happy, but, try to find some balance there. We hope the Weeknd gets out of that place, whatever this dark, twisted, Stranger Things era, upside down spot that he's at. We hope he gets out of there. But overall, you can't light a candle as far as the audio quality, the music, the organization of the instruments and the music singing and the production. It's top notch. So when it comes to standout moments for our album report card, right? What would you say your standout moment is for this track? If you got one, I can go off on one of my standout moments.
It's quite a few standout moments. I like the sacrifice sample. That was really cool. I like the way that Jim Carrey is laced throughout the project as a radio DJ. That's really cool. It gave a very V103. That's a soul station from Chicago vibe with the deep sultry voice. I like the overall just vibe of it. I think, one of my favorite tracks is going to be Every Angel is Terrifying. I like the kind of Stranger Things vibe there. I like the whole vaporwave energy as well throughout the track.
Definitely.
So it's like, to say that there are standout moments, there are definitely certain tracks that are better than others, but this is an album, and I think that's what people appreciate about The Weeknd is he makes albums. He makes albums.
It's an album. And I would say we're both probably on the same page when it comes to production and beats. This is, A.
This is A. Yeah, this is
easy. Easy.
This sounds like a Michael Jackson or a Prince project.
Yeah.
Made in 2022.
And I would say we're probably on the same page when it comes to the album Weight Class. This is definitely Knockout.
Yeah, this is a heavyweight project. I mean, it's heavy, literally in every sense of the word. If you listen to this project, I would advise you be in a good state in your life. Like if you're going through some relationship problems,
don't be drinking. Listen to this.
Yeah, no, and don't be like on the edge of going out on your relationship and listen to this because this will make you fuck up your relationship.
You got to claw like you in the sunken place trying to get to the surface.
This isn't music that's gonna help you get out of that bad place. This is music that's gonna support that bad place.
Yeah, pushing you further. So maybe follow up listening to this album with our recommendation of Pharrell Williams' Happy.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
So we appreciate you tuning into the episode of From the Jump. Now, please comment below. And did you disagree with our opinions about these tracks? What was your favorite track on here and why? Comment below. Subscribe to our channel so we can produce more valuable content. We got hip-hop interviews coming up by League of Extraordinary G's Dominican J. He's going to come up pretty soon. So tune in for that if you want to know the inside scoop. And also, we want to just thank you for listening and supporting our channel for another episode of From the Jump.
Peace.